By creating tethered drone stations and solutions, this company is shaping the future of drone surveillance with incredible technology, a lot of versatility, and unlimited autonomy for their drones. Let me introduce Elistair. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Builder Nation. Today, we're joined by Guilhem de Marliave, CEO and co-founder at Elistair. Welcome, Guilhem. Thank you very much for joining us today. Could you please introduce yourself a little bit?
Hello, Sam. Thanks for the invitation. So my name is Guilhem de Marliave. I co-founded Elistair 9 years ago. It's a drone manufacturer company. We are focused on tethered drones. So we are solving the autonomy issue of battery-powered drones, allowing them to be powered from the ground and thus to fly for 50 hours in a row. And it's designed for, police forces, firefighters, and military units mostly.
Thank you very much for that quick overview of what we're going to be talking about today. But before we jump into the entire, your tethered drones, your tether stations, and the whole technology, before all of that, Guilhem, I took a little dive into your history, into your background, and I have to say it's pretty impressive how you came from the solar power sort of industry to drones. Like how did you transition from one to the other? They don't really seem connected.
Actually, it's we started the company very fast after the engineering school. That's where we met with Timothy, and so the experience you could see are internships and gap year, and so it's short periods. But let's say I had experiences in a mixed environment between technology and science and business. So it's always been that kind of mix that I was looking for at this stage. And then at the last year of the engineering school, I was looking for starting my own business because I wanted to dive in something new and be my own boss and so on and so on. So at that time, it was the very early beginnings of the drone industry in France. It was 2012, 2013. So we had this kind of opening thanks to, we have a kind of FAA, DGAC in France, which allowed the use of drones for commercial applications. And so that's where I thought it was a good space because it was new and there were movements and stuff to create. So I went to work for a drone company for like half a year to develop new business for that company. And that's when I started looking for ideas and technology gaps and problem we could solve better in the industry. And we had, of course, a lot of issue with batteries, calling fire when we charge them. And flyaways of drones because we lost the comms also. And one day this company had a mission where they had to fly a drone in Paris, and just to get the permits, we were asked to put a leash, a physical leash on the drone to restrain it, so we could get the permission to fly. So there was this guy all day long that had to, with a fishing rope and went back and forth all day long. And that's kind of where the whole idea started. Why not use the leash, for power, for data, a bit like they're doing, with underwater submarines. This kind of umbilical concept is not new, but the idea was to, use it for the IL vehicles.
All right. So this started by flying the world's most expensive kite. Basically, that's amazing. Thank you very much for that. I was actually going to ask how that idea came to life originally, but Guilhem, for those in the audience who might not really be familiar with what a tethered drone is, or the why is it actually tied to something physical, could you explain a little bit what your company does, what these tethered drones are?
Yeah, so Elistair is the leading company in the design and manufacture of tethered drone systems. So the idea is that your drone has a link to the ground, which is a micro tether, very light, very thin, that provides power and data communication. So the drone can fly for 50 hours in a row. All the data are secured and high speed, so you can't get jammed. And then it's a lot easier to deploy them in complex scenario compared to because of the aviation laws, right? Because it's very safe, it can't fly away, and if it falls or something happens, where it will happen. That being said, the drones are not moving, so it's static. But at 50 meter, 100 meter, you are able to see over the trees, over the building, and we currently have a 10-kilometer detection range, which it gives a pretty large area of surveillance. And we build them now for security, mostly security applications, where the idea is to have an aerial view of a situation, because you get a lot more information, but in real time, and to be able to act faster, for like a chief of police that has to protect a large event, or border control guard, and so on. They have this large view, and they can take better decisions fast when sometimes lives are at risk, or it's asset protection, and so on. So we started 9 years ago by focusing on our core problematic, which is the tether side. So we released the first tethering station for various types of drones, and very compatible with a large range, with a winch system. And then slowly, step by step, we began to also work on our own drone that are the only one that's specifically designed for tethered flights. And we are working more and more on the data side as well.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing all of that. Now, actually, before jumping into more specifically this tether that you mentioned that you developed, which was the biggest challenge, I wanted to ask you about the tethered drone technology as a whole, right? What are the advantages of a tether system and the disadvantages also of a tether system compared to a traditional free-flying drone for security that somebody's operating? What are the advantages and disadvantages compared to that?
So we talked about a little about this. First one is autonomy, of course. So instead of flying 30 minutes with a battery-powered drone, you will fly 50 hours in a row. Then you have data. We talked about data, integrity, safety, high speed. Then you have legislation. You have more room on that side. Then also the flight plan is very simple, right? Because you go up, then you stay there. It's fully automated, secured, and then it goes down after a few hours. So you don't need a very trained pilot and so on. You need an operator, which makes it more simple. Then you have, of course, the downsides. First one is mobility, of course, because you are tethered. So you will fly up at a certain point, stay static, and your mission needs to be, on a located space. So, for instance, on a large event, or if you want to survey the surroundings of the stadium, then you know exactly where to put your drone, and you gain, all the advantages we talked about before. But it's not a tool for search and rescue or to gather intel at a few kilometers very discreetly. It's more like a portable infrastructure, like a pop-up mast or pocket satellite, whatever you want to call it. But it's more on the static side and the permanent side.
All right, I really like that comparison, a pocket satellite. That's actually pretty cool. Thank you very much for that. Now, going straight into your history a little bit, I noticed that in 2015 is when you first delivered, like you were the first in the world to deliver into Thales, I believe, the world's first tethered drone station, just like that. So my question is, how long did it actually take you to come and develop this technology to make it actually usable so that you could, sell it to somebody? Because I know that you founded the company, you mentioned already, like 2013 approximately. Seems pretty fast to me. So how did you first come up with it?
At that time, there was already tethered drones, like the concept wasn't new. Some company already built it. But there weren't any kits that could, transform a free-flying drone into a tethered drone easily and plug and fly. So that was our focus. It took us a bit over 1 year to get the first beta prototype, but working prototype on the market. And we had the chance to meet, a few customers willing to test. So in 2015, it was first units, but like beta prototype units that we were trialed with the help of Thales and a few other customers, and they gave us a lot of feedbacks, and then we improved. So it was very, iterative.
All right. Okay. So it seems like it was very straightforward. That's great. It's great that it wasn't such a long development. That's amazing. Thank you very much for that. Now, jumping into the actual products that you at Elistair have, right? Based on your website, I noticed that you have 3 different ones. One of them is a drone, the Orion 2. And then you also have the safety and light T tethered stations. So first of all, in the drone, what are the benefits of your drone? How did you come to build it? What is sort of the idea behind your drone? What is it like?
So when we built the tethers at first, so safety and lighty tethers, we partnered with various drone manufacturers that we still work with, and it's going very well with them. It's for multi-mission drones, right? So you will have a fleet of drone, and sometimes you will fly them for freely, and sometimes we'll just take the tethers, clip it, fly, and you. So it's the kind of versatility that those customers, the police forces, are looking for. And then we had more inquiries about, okay, it's nice to fly 6-7 hours with a pilot and so on, but what I want is a tethered drone that's fully autonomous and that can fly, 50 hours or more. And I don't care if it can fly freely or not. I want it to be very good at tethered flights. And that's when we started thinking about it. And one day the French army came to us and said, okay, we want it. We're going to fund part of the development. And you're going to build, specifically designed tethered drone. And that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when we released the first Orion 1. And then, step by step, we increased the capabilities, the safety, the fail-safe architecture, because the software side was a big workload. We chose a hexacopter structure in order to be able to, have more redundancy on the motors. We worked on the positioning system, because when you fly very long, then you have big drifts on the barometer on the positioning side. And so on and so on, vibration, shock, motor lifespan, and step by step, we are solving all these small issues. It takes years, but we started with 12 hours flight time, then 24. Now we are at 50, working on the next level.
And what's the next level looking like? If we can have a hint.
Yeah, 50, 100. We are looking for reaching the 100, and then we also are focusing on other aspects, because flight time is one aspect, of course, but then the ease, capacity, and also the intelligence behind the data is also a big requirement.
Right. So for what I understand, it's not just building the drone, which is it's a challenge in itself, right? The hardware and the development, but also the software is what you mentioned. You're also focusing a lot on, so to analyze data. Now, what kind of data does a tethered drone station can provide? Like from a surveillance aspect, what kind of data can a person expect after setting it up?
So we have, let's say, 2 big categories of application. You have the video side, and then you have the communication side. So either you put cameras on the tethered drones, or you put radio relays, which is another world, because it's quite complex. It's a lot of different payload types and so on. So on that side, we are mostly working on the ease of integration, the data link, and so on. But we are working with partners on the radios, of course. But then on the camera side, so you have streams of data, which are videos, which are either thermal or standard EO streams. But when you are tethered, you have a huge amount of data, because it's not like 30 minutes of video, which is already has a weight in terms of data storage. But when you have 24 or 50 hours, it's another topic. And then you need also to analyze it. And if you are a camera operator, 50 hours looking at a screen is pretty long.
Yeah, I know, it's a lot.
So we, on the first years of the company, and still today, we are working, on easing the flight itself, making it very autonomous in terms of deployments and the use of the drone itself. But the next step is also helping the video operator, so he can only, get alarms, triggers, and so on, to be able to focus on information and use the parameters of the system to only have the info he needs in the end. So there are a lot of options. It's a fast-moving field, and we are not, AI data, imagery analysis company, but we are partnering with other companies that are very good at it. And our, goal is to provide a system that is the most easy to use with a good UX. So that's where we are putting efforts on. Let's say on the data side, our team currently is mostly on the onboard data, like everything around the flight and the autonomous side of the flights and the safety, so onboard developments, and on the UX side. So we have our interface on the ground, very easy, fluid, and able to, on the security side, able to share data, disseminate easily.
Okay, so for what I understand, this is pretty much just about the volume of that whole information, which is actually amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that, Guilhem. Now, I want to jump into your tether stations, okay, specifically the safety and light tip. But before we do anything, could you please explain to our audience, to all of us who might not really be so familiar with it, what are these tether stations?
So basically, it's a winch system. You have 100 meter of tether, it's a thin cable that needs to be, wind in and wind out very properly. It's quite thin. And then you have inside the tether, you will have all the power conversion side, which steps up the voltage. So the tether can be thin and the current can be low. And then you have this tether, and on the drone side you have a module that will replace the battery, and that will low down the voltage to put it at the right voltage, at the motor voltage. And of course you have all the electronics that will manage it, be sure that it's very stable, it's pure, and be able also to have some safety feature, like switching to a safety battery instantly if you have a problem on the ground, and so on. And then, so that's for the power chain. And then you have the data chain. So we have two options. We use either, I'm not sure the term in English, but power line, power line encoding, a bit like you have in your own house when you want to use a Wi-Fi through the electrical cables. So BPL, BPL.
Okay.
And then we have fiber optics as an option for application which requires a lot more data.
Right, that certainly does augment the bandwidth of it. That's actually pretty cool. And did you actually get hands-on into R&D maybe, or development of new materials for these tethers, or did you use the ones that were already available in the market?
Yeah, we are using mostly off-the-shelf components, and for some of them it's specific designs, but it's not materials are very standard.
Right. Yeah, I understand that the important part is actually the modules, which I wanted to talk about a little bit very, very briefly. So you mentioned it early in the interview that the main thing that you started doing at the beginning was building these modules, and you paired up with a bunch of drones industries, right, and drone manufacturers. For example, recently you unveiled a power module for the DJI M30, right? is it in the future? Are you planning of building some sort of solution that is, we could say, a one size fit all, sort of like an agnostic solution for agnostic air drones, like to be able to do it with any drone that anybody could, buy? Or is it specific for determinate models of drones?
Actually, we want the experience to be very integrated and smooth, but so of course it will be very interesting to have something very standard, and we have two modules that are pretty standard, like a 6S and 12S module. That's a lot of partners use as they are, and they do a bit of customization, but they use them. So it's we have these standard modules, and we go a bit further for some drones that are widely spread in the market, and that needs a more tightly integrated system, especially when they have very smart BMS, battery monitoring systems, right, and so on. So for those one, we will do specific designs.
Okay, I understand. Thank you very much for that. I honestly thought that you developed a specific module for a specific drone. It's amazing to see that it's sort of a more broad aspect to it. Now, I could easily keep talking about these drones and about your tether stations, but I want to move to a little bit sort of to the closure of this interview, because I think it's been really insightful. I didn't know a lot about tether drones and stuff. It's amazing. But now I want to poach a little bit your brain as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a person that from college already moved into having his own business, right? What advice would you give to any young entrepreneurs, any students, any fans of engineering out there who might be starting their own path? What advice would you give them?
So I had a lot of advices along the way. So it's always tricky, right? Because people want to give advice, and usually you have to listen, but not listen to them. I think I had a good one that was to talk about the project you have in mind and put it out, and spelling it out to people around you, just to challenge it. Because when you don't talk about it, it's kind of a fancy dream, and you are very comfortable because everything looks bright. But as soon as you begin to talk about it, then it becomes real, and sometimes it's a bit painful, and it will always be a bit painful. But that's when the journey really begin, because you get feedbacks, you understand that it's not that easy, then you find solution, and then you're starting the journey. So yeah, that would be my main advice.
Thank you. I believe it's a first time that I've heard that phrase. I think it was really cool what you just said, which is that it's when you speak about it, it becomes real. That's actually pretty cool. So I believe that is the perfect way to bring a closure to this interview, Guilhem. Thank you very much for the insights on your drones, on the industry, on how it works. We definitely have a lot of more stuff to touch regarding the applications, what kind of companies use this and stuff. So for anybody out there who's interested in this, where can we find you, and where can we find Elistair? Do you have any social media handles so that people can find more info about you?
Yeah, so we have of course, there is a website, elistair.com, but then we are very active on LinkedIn. So the whole team is using it, and we usually publish a lot of articles, communication, and so on. So you can follow us there.
Sounds perfect. And I do recommend everybody going there, because I was looking at their website before the interview. I can tell you, Guilhem, you have a lot of stuff going on. It's incredible. I was really interested, specifically in the applications of your drones and your solutions for public safety and stuff. It's amazing. So guys, go ahead, check them out. And also remember that you can find more information, interesting articles, and interviews directly on our website, controlhub.com/builder-nation. We're going to love to hear from you. Thank you very much for being part of this community. We're going to see you the next episode. And again, thank you very much, Guilhem, for joining us today. We were so lucky to have you.
Thanks a lot, Sam.
When building the future is your priority, tedious procurement processes should be last on your list. The problem is that purchasing data is scattered across spreadsheets, receipts, emails, and messages. Tracking it all sucks and makes it easy to commit mistakes. Introducing the Control Hub Way, the all-in-one purchasing software for hardware companies. Buying parts, services, or office supplies? Submit a quick purchase request to buy from your list of approved vendors, or buy from a new provider. Buying from approved vendors is even easier. Import your shopping cart directly into your purchase request using our checkout integrations. When the order is ready, submit it for approval. We'll ping all pre-designated approvers both via Control Hub's website, email, and Slack notifications for a faster turnaround. If you need a PO, we got you. Generate it in one click. Online purchase? Boom, virtual card. Do an automatic three-way match, pay invoices, and sync everything live with QuickBooks or NetSuite. Purchasing just got a lot easier. Control Hub. Get back to building.